Join us right now from beautiful Baton Rouge in the state of Louisiana. Our guest is here today to celebrate his brand new debut picture book. It's called Welcome to My World. Please welcome to the show, Ty Trotter. Hey, Ty, how are you?
Hello there. I'm all right. How are you?
Wonderful. Excited to have you on. Tell us all about Welcome to My World.
So Welcome to My World is a book about two sisters who are going through the day of their life, and they encounter some blind people or visually impaired. And it's going to more or less touch on three types of visually impaired people or blind people and educate and show how they cope with the world around them. And it shows how people are people, where they may seem to have a disability, but some have coped way more or adapted way better than others, and some may just be what we would call average people.
Well, this is certainly a subject that's near and dear to my heart. Back in 1989, I created a disabilities awareness video. I wrote and performed in it and produced it, and that was the central message of that video. It was called Melt Down the Walls to Separate, and the main point of the video is to help kids understand that people with challenges and disabilities are people, and they can be great friends.
Yes.
Yeah. So you mentioned that there are three types there are people with three different types of visual impairment. Can you talk a little bit about those differences?
Okay, well, I touch on the ability of the vision impaired because I'm a member of the NFB, National Federation of the Blind, and I was in a meeting recently, and we discussed that they use the term they prefer more like low vision opposed to blind. Many don't like the term blind. More the older people are okay with it, but we all, I guess, mature, develop at our own pace. And if you have some vision, you want to be recognized as vision or low vision. Even though, but in this book, I cover one guy who's completely blind, but he uses a technique that's called echolocation. Another person is just your average person who's blind, and they show regular, everyday ways that you can apply it to your life, things you may have never thought about. It's somewhat, I don't want to say a game, but it gives you an exercise to practice or try if you choose to. And you can see how your hearing is compared to the instructions that the guy in the book gives to one of the characters or one of the sisters that he's educating or informing.
You mentioned that one of the characters uses echolocation. I know when I was young, my dad worked for the telephone company, and they had a group of volunteers within that organization called the Pioneers, and I think they were the first ones to come up with the idea of putting a sound into a softball so that kids with visual impairment could play softball. As the ball was getting closer, they could hear it. And I just think that's fascinating. How does someone use echolocation to get around?
Okay, there's a popular guy. He has a school on the West Coast that educates, and you don't have to be visually impaired to learn echolocation. So it's not just for the visually impaired, but it's geared toward that. But the guy who I met person to person, who I kind of borrowed his technique in the book, is he uses his fingers and the sound of his finger snapping, and he navigates the world throughout that. He identifies what is in front of him, where it's going, and it's all from a sound, the echo of the finger snap. Wow. I've seen there's a guy, like the guy I mentioned from the West Coast, who has a school. He uses his mouth to echolocate, and he can ride a bike, so it's almost limitless to, it's similar to that with bats use or sonar radars, so radars don't move, but with echolocation you're constantly resurveying your environment because you're the moving part in that equation.
That's really fascinating. Is this something that somebody could use like in a busy, noisy city like New York City?
They can, yes, they can. It all depends on the level you have trained, pinpoint. But of course, distractions and things of that nature comes even when you have sight, because you can be looking where you're going, and all those with 20/20 have tripped and stumbled once, and it has nothing to do with your vision. It's a level of attention and awareness of your environment. So the technique helps them, but also most people still carry a cane.
Okay.
Or you are advised, if you use the technique, to still carry a cane, so others would know that you're visually impaired and minimize any misunderstanding.
Yeah. Tell me, Ty, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, one, my parents are blind. Been blind all my life. Let me say that. I'm a member of a national organization for the blind. There's multiple organizations now, but the one I'm part of believes that blind people or visually impaired should be able to do for themselves, not necessarily have someone speak for them. We want to speak for ourselves, hear us out, and that's where it circles back to we all are people, respect, love, things like that. We want, regardless if we tall, short, or otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And I got into that, like as you asked, because my parents are blind or my mother is blind, but then she wasn't just blind. She was blind, and then she became an educator or a teacher, public school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And after I did that, I actually found this. I knew she was a teacher, but I found out more about her during COVID, and to sit down and we got to talk more. I was like, my goodness, you did all this? And she was like, yeah, that was way before your time. And I was like, okay. So I want the visually impaired and blind to understand that there may be extra hassle and discouragement, but it's not necessarily a limitation on their life. And likewise with those with the lack of a better word, considered normal.
Mm-hmm. You know, we love the fact that books can be mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. And obviously, I think this book would be a great inspiration for anybody that is visually challenged, or anybody facing any kind of challenge, to get out there and really do. I think your mom's story is incredible. But I also love the fact that this book can give people with typical vision a chance to look in and meet somebody, or in this case, 3 characters who have a visual impairment, and get to know them and get to know that they are human beings and can be fantastic friends. Tell me, Ty, did you always dream of being a children's author?
Not at all. I had no intentions of writing any books. I couldn't read until I was 16.
Wow.
So when that came along, I couldn't. I can tell you this: big words were words like river. If it was more than 3 alphabets, I was in trouble.
Wow.
And that went on until I was good in high school, and my behavior and my pleasantries kept and willingness not to get into too much trouble kept me straight. And the teachers, like, well, they worked with me. They knew I can do math pretty decent, so they realized I wasn't quitting on myself. It's just that it wasn't there. So then a few might have thought dyslexic, but it wasn't that. It's just I didn't know how to read, or I wasn't a reader. And through years of work and due diligence, eventually I got able to get past 3 alphabets to maybe words like river. And even I still wasn't too great of a reader, but I started to see the importance. See, before I had a grandmother who couldn't read either, but she seemed accomplished to me. She had her own land, she had her own farm, she's so self-sufficient and reliant. I didn't think, I was like, well, she's doing pretty good, got 2 houses, she can't read a word. But I realized reading you can live and have a decent life without reading, possibly. But it gets you, it's like that extra, I don't want to say the icing on the cake.
Right.
Because you can have this without reading, certain things without reading, but if you can read, it can make that life a little easier, because instead of searching around for clues, you can read directly what the sign says.
Right. We had Malcolm Mitchell, who was a Super Bowl winning member of the New England Patriots, and he shared his story that, like a lot of athletes, he was just passed through, and when he arrived at college, he realized that he wasn't able to read. And he decided that, no, that was unacceptable, and he taught himself how to read by reading picture books.
Oh, yeah, now, I will agree. Picture books are a high commodity. I remember I got into a tussle, not quite a full-fledged fight, but it was enough blows thrown. It was a tussle over a picture book. We must have been, me and the other guy might have been 15, 16 in the library. I don't know if he could read, but I know we was going to have to read this book in front of the class or whatever we had to do. And I was like, well, I don't want to get a novel by Robert Frost or anything. So I said, let me get this book. They had pictures, and it was very minimum lines, maybe a sentence per page. And we got into a tussle over there, and I was like, no one knew why I was so passionate about getting this book, but I was like, I definitely needed this book because that's the only book I know I could read.
Uh-huh.
And that was one of the things I think helped me realize I don't want to get in a fight over a coloring book every time. Let me learn to improve myself somewhat. So I got better, and I would buy toys at times, like back with G.I. Joe and them had little profiles. I couldn't necessarily read it, but I was very interested in the profile of the action figure or the characters. Mm-hmm. And that kind of propelled me or led me to, or beckoned me to learn to read. And I got to say, I don't regret it. I'm not one of those people that read everything that passes in front of my face, but I'm glad I'm able to read. And because of that, I hear many adults are illiterate and children. And I think if they knew that it's never too late, or we all grow at our own pace, they wouldn't be ashamed or so disheartened. Even if you're an adult and you're unable to read, and writing and reading is not the same. I could draw, I can write, I knew all my alphabets. I just sounding out and spelling, all that just wasn't my strong suit. So I would say it's never too late to learn. You have and try to get away from, if the crowd you're around don't value what you want to value, you may have to find a new crowd.
Yeah. Wise words indeed. Tell me, how does it feel now that Welcome to My World is just about out into the world?
It feels great because I'm also working on a part 2 of that. So it feels great. I get to address, I get to bring attention to the vision impaired, blind, or low vision, whichever term we're going to use. And that's one thing. And I want people to realize that blind people are not dumb, because, like I said, people are people. You have some people who are maybe smarter than others, and that has nothing to do with their sight. So likewise, the book before that I wrote, ended up writing a book on the first totally blind East Baton Rouge Parish school teacher. And I tell her story about how she became a teacher, some of the college she went through, the things she traveled and went through. And she did a lot of traveling with a cane and a guide dog. That was routine. We expect that, that's commonplace with blind people, canes and guide dogs. But the ecolocation wasn't as widely known, so I thought I would add that to this current book. But those are things that I really, I guess, somewhat passionate to, bringing attention to that so that those who are visually impaired or blind understand they have options, and those who just don't know how to interact with the blind, I also have something in there for them too, the somewhat tidbit, because some people are more familiar than others, but sometimes we don't mean to be rude or thoughtless, but we're sometimes just ignorant. We are unfamiliar with this territory, and that goes beyond just blind. It's cultures And sometimes gender, a male might say a statement that's insensitive to a female, and we think nothing of it. Or likewise, an ethnicity group may not think of another when they say something, and it just wasn't something readily on our mind. We meant no harm. We didn't mean any of that, but it came across wrong because we weren't aware of such.
Right. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Welcome to My World.
Yes, you can keep an eye out for it under Ty Trotter, Tyron, Trotter, last name Trotter, and it should be available. Well, once I get the audiobook done, it should be available on Apple, should be in libraries, and I also expect it to be more places, and there will be a website for it and other things coming.
Wonderful. We've had a great time speaking to the author of Welcome to My World. It is a debut picture book from our guest, Ty Trotter. Ty, thanks so much for being with us.
All right, thank you, and have a great day.